20 films across 7 decades, combined losses in the hundreds of millions, 0 Academy Award nominations between them. I've got Orson Welles here, dumped as a double bill with a Hedy Lamarr B movie. I've got a John Carpenter film that was nominated for a Razzie and is now in the National Film Registry. And there's at least one movie so good it literally destroyed its director's career because audiences weren't ready for it. Which snub aged the worst? Let's find out. Sam Peckinpah had just come off The Wild Bunch and Straw Dogs. Critics already thought he was too brutal for mainstream Hollywood. Then he made Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, and they called it career suicide. The budget was modest. Shot on location in Mexico with 0 studio interference. Peckinpah himself said it was the only film where he had total creative control. You'd think that would produce something special. It did. Nobody wanted it. The box office was described as a paltry amount. Critics savaged it. One of the nastiest receptions of the decade. Here's the thing though. It now sits at 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. Roger Ebert added it to his great movies collection. Peckinpah scholars consider it his masterpiece. Warren Oates' performance is taught in film schools. The Academy gave Best Picture to The Godfather Part 2 that year. Fair enough. But 0 nominations for Alfredo Garcia? That one stings more every year. Alex Proyas made Dark City for around $27 million. It grossed exactly $27 million worldwide. With marketing, that's a clear loss. Roger Ebert called it the best film of 1998. He recorded a personal DVD commentary for it. Gold Darby noted it received exactly 0 Oscars. Here's where it gets wild. The Matrix came out a year later, reused Dark City's actual sets at Fox Studios Australia, and won 4 Academy Awards. Same production design, same studio lot. One film gets ignored, the other becomes a cultural phenomenon. New Line didn't know how to market it. They added an opening voiceover that spoiled the entire mystery because they thought audiences wouldn't understand the esoteric and existentialist reflections. The movie got dumped in February while Titanic was still dominating. Shakespeare in Love won Best Picture that year. History hasn't been kind to that choice. David Cronenberg's first major Hollywood studio film, Videodrome, cost $5.9 million. It made $2.12 million. That's 35% of its budget back. A disaster. You'd think Universal would have known what they were getting. They didn't. The film features some of the most transgressive imagery in mainstream cinema history. Studio head Sidney Sheinberg reportedly regretted the wide release. Now it holds 83% on Rotten Tomatoes. Criterion gave it the full treatment. The term Cronenbergian exists largely because of this movie. Rick Baker did the special effects fresh off winning the first ever Oscar for Best Makeup. Cronenberg said it best. It wasn't an exploitation cell and it wasn't an art cell. I don't know what it was. The Academy knew what it was. They ignored it completely. Terms of Endearment won Best Picture. Michael Powell was one of Britain's most prestigious directors. The Red Shoes, A Matter of Life and Death, 3 prior Oscar nominations. Then he made Peeping Tom and it ended his career. The critical response was toxic. One reviewer wrote, "The only really satisfactory way to dispose of Peeping Tom would be to shovel it up and flush it swiftly down the nearest sewer." Theaters pulled it on opening day in some cases. It came out just months before Psycho covered remarkably similar ground. Hitchcock's film became a massive hit. Powell's was buried. Now it sits at 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. The BFI ranks it among the greatest British films ever made. Criterion released a 4K restoration. Martin Scorsese personally championed it. Powell wrote in his autobiography, "I make a film that nobody wants to see, and then, 30 years later, everybody has either seen it or wants to see it." He never recovered professionally. The Apartment won Best Picture that year. Orson Welles made Touch of Evil for around $829,000. Universal released it as a double bill with The Female Animal starring Hedy Lamarr. That tells you everything about their confidence level. The film opens with one of the most famous shots in cinema history, a single, unbroken take running over 3 minutes. Revolutionary cinematography from Russell Meddy, 0 Oscar nominations. Screen Rant lists it among the most shocking Oscar movie snubs of all time. Universal cut 15 minutes and hired another director for reshoots. Welles wrote a famous 58-page memo protesting the changes. It took until 1998 for a restoration based on that memo to reach theaters. Now it's at 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. National Film Registry since 1993. It was Wells' last Hollywood film. He spent much of his remaining career in exile. Gigi won Best Picture. Nobody talks about Gigi anymore. Stanley Kubrick was 28 years old. He made Paths of Glory for $935,000, with over a third going to Kirk Douglas's salary. The film was banned in France, Switzerland, and several other countries for its negative depiction of the French military. 0 Academy Award nominations. Frame Rated put it perfectly. In March 1958, most of the major Academy Awards were swept up by The Bridge on the River Kwai, and a much smaller-scale war film from a little-known director named Stanley Kubrick received no nominations whatsoever. It now holds 96% on Rotten Tomatoes and 90% on Metacritic. National Film Registry, universally considered one of the greatest anti-war films ever made. Here's the broader tragedy. Kubrick went on to make some of the most iconic films in cinema history. His total competitive Academy Awards, 0. The only Oscar he ever won was for special effects on 2001. Charles Laughton directed one film in his entire career. The Night of the Hunter cost around $795,000. Some sources cite total tracked returns as low as $6,030. United Artists buried it. Producer Paul Gregory stated, "Absolutely no money was spent on promotion. United Artists didn't have the muscle, desire, or intelligence to handle the picture." Robert Mitchum's performance as the preacher with love and hate tattooed across his knuckles became one of cinema's most iconic images. Spike Lee referenced it in Do the Right Thing. Tattoo parlors worldwide still recreate those knuckles. Cahiers du Cinéma ranked it the second greatest film of all time, behind only Citizen Kane. It's influenced Scorsese, Lynch, Malick, the Coen brothers, and Guillermo del Toro. Laughton was devastated by the reception. He never directed again. Marty won Best Picture. Nobody's calling Marty the second greatest film ever made. Hal Ashby made Harold and Maude for $1.2 million. Variety's review opened with, "Harold and Maude has all the fun and gaiety of a burning orphanage. Opening weekend was described as dismal. The romance between a 20-year-old and an 80-year-old was considered deeply offensive. Paramount minimized it in marketing and released the film with virtually no support." Here's what's wild. Ashby's other 1970s films earned 24 Academy Award nominations and 7 wins combined. Harold and Maude got 0. It's his only film without Oscar recognition. Now, it has a Criterion release. It played for 3 consecutive years at one Minneapolis theater before residents picketed to get something else. One fan in 1974 claimed to have seen it 138 times. The screenplay was Colin Higgins' master's thesis. He pitched it to a producer's daughter while driving her to school as her family's pool cleaner. The French Connection won Best Picture. Both films endure, but one defines a generation's counterculture spirit. Michael Lehman made Heathers for $3 million. Opening weekend, $177,247. Final domestic gross, $1.1 million. The distributor New World Pictures was going bankrupt and couldn't market it. It won the Independent Spirit Award for Best First Feature. 0 Oscar nominations. Director Lehman noted, "Teenagers don't have any trouble with it. It's always adults that are shocked." Now it holds 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. It spawned a hit Broadway musical. The National Film Registry added it in 2022. Entertainment Weekly ranks it among the best high school movies ever made. Driving Miss Daisy won Best Picture that year. That was also the year Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing was controversially left out of the Best Picture race. The Academy had options. They made choices. History remembers. Richard Linklater's Dazed and Confused cost $6.9 million, with 1/6 of that budget going to 1970s music rights. It opened in only 183 theaters and grossed $918,127 opening weekend. 0 Oscar nominations. You'd think a small film with no stars wouldn't matter, but look at that cast. Matthew McConaughey, Ben Affleck, Mila Jovovich, Parker Posey. This movie launched careers. McConaughey's character was supposed to have a few lines. When another actor had trouble fitting in, he got expanded screen time. That's where "all right, all right, all right" came from. His foundation is named after another line from the film. Quentin Tarantino called it one of his 12 favorite films ever, describing it as maybe the only movie that 3 different generations of college students have seen multiple times. Criterion gave it a release. It holds 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. Schindler's List won Best Picture. No argument there, but 0 nominations for Dazed and Confused still feels wrong. Alex Garland made Annihilation for somewhere between $40 and $55 million. It grossed $32.7 million domestic. Paramount was so scared of it bombing, they sold international distribution rights to Netflix before the theatrical release. Financier David Ellison thought the film was too intellectual and too complicated after test screenings. He wanted changes. Garland refused the major ones. Barack Obama listed it among his favorite films of 2018. It made the Oscar shortlist for Best Original Score. Final nomination count, 0. The bear scene, featuring a creature that screams in a human voice, is one of the most terrifying sequences in modern cinema. Critics compared it to The Thing. Garland said, "We made the film for cinema. Netflix got most of the world." Green Book won Best Picture. Brad Bird's directorial debut, The Iron Giant, cost $50 million to produce plus $30 million in marketing. Warner Brothers test screenings were their highest-scoring film in 15 years. The movie made $31.3 million worldwide. Estimated loss, $64 million. Warner Brothers focused their entire promotional budget on Wild Wild West instead. No serial tie-ins, no fast food partnerships, no merchandise. Bird was processing a personal tragedy during production. He learned the source novel had been written by Ted Hughes to comfort his children after their mother's passing. His pitch to the studio: what if a weapon had a soul and didn't want to be a weapon? It won 9 Annie Awards, 0 Oscar nominations. The Best Animated Feature category didn't exist yet. Bird later went to Pixar and won Oscars for The Incredibles and Ratatouille. He once said, "Nobody can tell me that Snow White isn't one of the best films of 1937, and yet, it wasn't even nominated." American Beauty won Best Picture that year. Mike Judge made Office Space for $10 million. It grossed $12.2 million theatrically. Cinema Score on opening weekend was C+. Then it sold over 6 million DVDs. Here's a detail I love. The red Swingline stapler in the film didn't exist. Swingline didn't manufacture a red stapler. They created one because of demand from this movie. It became one of their best-selling products. Ron Livingston told Variety, "People come and tell me that the movie changed their life. It regularly tops best comedy lists. It's referenced in political campaign ads. It's the definitive film about white-collar work culture, 0 Oscar nominations." American Beauty won that year too. 1999 was stacked. Richard Kelly's directorial debut cost $4.5 million. Initial theatrical gross, $517,375 across just 58 screens. The problem wasn't the film, it was the timing. Donnie Darko was released October 26, 2001, 6 weeks after September 11th. The plot involves a plane engine falling on a house. The distributor essentially couldn't advertise it. They considered going straight to video. Christopher Nolan and Emma Thomas helped secure distribution after a private screening. Home video sales, over $10 million. Nearly 20 times its theatrical run. Empire ranked it the second greatest independent film of all time. Channel 4 put it in 50 films to see before you die. It launched Jake Gyllenhaal. Seth Rogen made his film debut in a supporting role. 0 Oscar nominations. A Beautiful Mind won Best Picture. Mike Judge made Idiocracy for $2.4 million. Theatrical gross, $444,093. DVD rentals, $9 million. Fox deliberately sabotaged this film. That's not speculation. The studio released it in only 7 cities, 130 theaters, with 0 advertising, no press kits, no critic screenings, and no trailers. Producer Guilford stated, "It was the first time that Fox ever released a movie with 0 advertising. Why? Reports suggest advertisers were unhappy with how their brands were portrayed. The New York Times speculated Fox didn't want to offend corporate partners." Screenwriter Ethan Cohen tweeted during the 2016 election, "I never expected Idiocracy to become a documentary." Mike Judge added, "I'm no prophet, I was off by 490 years. 0 Oscar nominations. The Departed won Best Picture. David Fincher made Zodiac for $65 million. Domestic gross, $33 million. A major disappointment for a thriller with Jake Gyllenhaal, Mark Ruffalo, and Robert Downey Jr. It appeared on more than 200 critics' top 10 lists that year. Only No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood showed up on more. 0 Oscar nominations. When asked about awards chances, Fincher was blunt. "No, I honestly don't think so. Awards movies are normally life-affirming and noble. People don't like it when you don't lead the bad guy off in cuffs." The BBC's 2016 critics poll voted it the 12th greatest film of the 21st century. Bong Joon-ho named it one of his 10 favorites. The New York Times ranked it 19th on their 100 best movies of the 21st century list. No Country for Old Men won Best Picture. Both films are masterpieces, but one got celebrated immediately. One had to wait. Edgar Wright's Scott Pilgrim cost somewhere between $60 and $85 million. Domestic gross, $31.5 million. A significant bomb. The cast was stacked with future stars not yet famous. Chris Evans before Captain America, Brie Larson before her Oscar, Anna Kendrick, Aubrey Plaza, Kieran Culkin. It made the visual effects shortlist. 0 final nominations. Empire ranked it 47th on their top 100 films of the 21st century. In 2023, Netflix produced an animated series with the entire original cast returning for voiceover. O. Scott of the New York Times called it the best video game movie ever. Collider described it as perhaps the defining cult hit of the 2000s and 10s. The King's Speech won Best Picture. The discourse around that choice remains complicated. Ridley Scott spent over $100 million on The Last Duel. Opening weekend, $4.8 million. The worst opening of his entire career. Final worldwide gross, $30.6 million. It was Matt Damon and Ben Affleck's first co-written screenplay since Good Will Hunting won them an Oscar in 1997. The National Board of Review selected it among their top 10 films of 2021. 0 Academy Award nominations. At the ceremony itself, host Regina Hall made it a punchline. "Now I've got the screener for a never-before-seen film, not even by the director. It's called The Last Duel." Scott blamed millennials on Mark Maron's podcast. "The millennials do not ever want to be taught anything unless you're told it on a cell phone." Coda won Best Picture. The Coen brothers had just won 2 Oscars and received 7 nominations for Fargo. Their follow-up, The Big Lebowski, cost $15 million. It made $18 million domestic, obliterated by Titanic. 0 Oscar nominations. Rolling Stone's Peter Travers wrote of Jeff Bridges' missing nomination, "That's right, no nomination. Nada, nothing. Geez, Academy, you really look stupid now." Now there's a religion based on this film. Dudism has over 600,000 ordained priests. 2 species of African spider are named after it. An extinct plant genus bears its name. The dude abides. The Academy didn't. Shakespeare in Love won Best Picture. That choice has not aged well. John Carpenter made The Thing for $15 million. It opened at number 8 with $3.1 million. Final domestic gross, $19.6 million. After marketing, a clear loss. Here's the problem. It released June 25th, 1982. 2 weeks after E.T., the extraterrestrial opened, same summer as Blade Runner. Audiences chose warmth over nihilism. The Academy nominated The Thing for a Razzie Award for Worst Musical Score. The composer was Ennio Morricone. In 2025, 43 years later, The Thing was selected for the National Film Registry. Carpenter has talked about the reception for decades. The movie was hated. People hated it. In 2023, he joked, "I just want to spend 5 minutes with each one in a room, a locked room, just the 2 of us. 5 minutes is all I ask." It's now screened annually at the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station to mark the beginning of winter. Gandhi won Best Picture. The Thing is the one people still watch. 7 decades, 20 films. The pattern is clear. Genre bias. Release timing disasters. Studios that deliberately buried their own products. The Academy rewarded Shakespeare in Love over The Big Lebowski. Gandhi over The Thing. Green Book over Annihilation. The films that won are footnotes. The films that lost define how we talk about cinema. I don't think the Academy has learned anything. They still treat genre filmmaking as inherently unworthy. They still ignore February releases. They still follow studio campaigns instead of artistic merit. The Thing needed 43 years to reach the National Film Registry. That's not recognition. That's an apology.